are in Porto, Portugal.
Finally get to ride in the gondola. Yeah. Say cheese. Cheese.
Bang.
Oh, I can see the park.
Yeah, that's the park we were at.
Welcome to Portugal. We're in Porto. We're spending a few weeks here. You know, a lot of my travels this year recently have been very fast-paced, and I prefer the types of trips where you get to slow down for a bit, go without an agenda, and just freely explore. Portugal is a really good place for that, and that's what we're here to do.
I know. It's so high.
So high up.
There's another one. That one's empty.
We're here with our friends Daniel and Joy. I've kind of always wanted to go to Portugal with them. Daniel is Portuguese, speaks the language, so that's nice to have here. And doing, a family and friends trip seems to fit pretty well for where we're at right now. I tend to think the secret to a good trip is to go at it with a purpose. And sometimes that purpose can be to have no agenda, to take a break from all the over-planning that life usually dictates. Of course, I do have one goal from this trip, and that's to eat as much pastel de nata as possible. This is a favorite Portuguese dessert. I already had 2 by day 1. Of course, one was from the airport lounge in Lisbon, and the other one was from Pingo Doce, which is the local supermarket. And even though those might not seem like the most gourmet places to get pastel, they were still pretty good, especially that airport one. Exceeded expectations. Alright, this is from the Confeiteria de Bolhau, and I kind of have high expectations for it. Crust game is solid. I love it when the inside is almost like a rice pudding. Portugal's a good place if you want to take your eyes off the clock and stop thinking about time quite as much as you might normally do. Now last year, I got a pretty good taste of escaping time in a place a long ways from here, the Philippines. Over there, people operate on Filipino time. I think the easy definition of that is to simply say Filipinos don't mind being a little late for things. If the party starts at 7, expect people to start rolling in at 8:30 or 9. If you actually want us there at 7, well, say it starts at 6 or even earlier. But you know, this is actually about so much more than being late. It's more about not rushing, not being in a hurry all the time, or acting like time is running out. And I can't get over this irony. Because in the US, in our regular life, it's so easy to just always be in a hurry. And we're always in a hurry because we have a lot of things to do. We try and pack it all into a single day. And sometimes I fall for this fallacy where if I accomplish things quickly, if I do them twice as fast, then I free up time. Maybe on the back end, I'll end up with more time to relax and take it easy. But that rarely works. I end up spending that bonus time to get ahead on the next day's tasks or something like that. And instead, it just makes me work at this frantic pace. You know, it's like this effort to create time is actually making me feel like I have less and less of it. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, maybe your meal doesn't come out right the moment you order it. And maybe the person who's helping you seems more relaxed than you wish they would. If you're not used to this, it can seem challenging. But they're not acting like time is running out. And what's funny is over there, maybe it's not. The days seem to go by at half speed. They last twice as long. They've got more volume to contain life. So I just had one of my best meals in Portugal, one of my best meals of the year, here in the city park of Porto. It's a spot called Meat Parque in the city park, outdoor seating right under trees, and we got bacalao pie, we got fish and potatoes, really good, cappuccino, wine, all for a cheaper price than what it costs to feed everybody fast food back home. So I mentioned Filipino time, but I've heard other people reference island time, Hawaiian time. Oh, and it's not just us islanders. You know, there's Indian time, Arab time, Turkish time, Mediterranean time. That's where we are right now, I suppose. My black friends have CPT, and the ones who are directly from Africa, they've got African time. We've given all these pet names for the way our cultures relate to time, which is cool, but when you zoom out and think about it and see how so many of us are like this, most of the world is actually like this, you realize that it's the Western world that's more of the exception, the minority. And so maybe that's the orientation to time that should have a label as unusual. And for everyone else, CPT, Filipino time, island time, Mediterranean time, is all just time. Look at how Reese tries to grab. I don't have it.
You're gonna really like the movie Hook when you finally watch it.
Oh, look how I tried to grab.
Although there are some pretty scary parts of that movie.
There's also Rufio.
Thank you.
You know that like trend back in the day with Instagram reels that was like,
God.
show me your teenage crush and show me your husband or whatever. I did it.
That's me and Rufio.
You're probably, of my childhood crushes, I would say that's the closest
You
to
could also throw me side by side with Freddie Prinze Jr. There is, of course, a reason the US tends to be like that, and as cliche as it is, industrialism and capitalism have a lot to do with it. The concept of time on a clock that's universally shared is actually pretty new on the scale of human history. For most of human history, we did things like agriculture, just living in relationship with the land, so you didn't really need to wake up that precisely on the dot to get ready to clock in somewhere, get in promptly at 9 so you could end exactly at 5. You needed to work so you could grow your resources, but you probably started with the sun and stopped when it started to fade. The work was extremely demanding and physical, but you were going at your own pace. You took your cues from nature and from your body, rather than from numbers on a calendar or a clock. The Industrial Revolution gave us the railroad, and it was only then that we found it really important to have a standardized sense of time. This enabled us to coordinate over distances, and that led to factories and things like assembly lines and people's work hours being measured and compensated based on time units. People started to work in relationship with these measurements of time rather than their bodies or with nature, as we've done for most of human history. I have this tendency to pack a little too much into life, and I do this with everything. You know I love travel, so I plan trips left and right. I love doing this because that's how I wind up with experiences like this. But also, sometimes I catch myself on a trip thinking of the next one or the one after that. And it's not just travel. I'm often guilty of trying to do as much as possible within a single day. One thing I've spoken up about before is time anxiety, the sense that time is always getting away from you, always speeding up, and so you should be doing something else than what you're currently doing. I feel this pretty often. I think a lot of this comes from a hyper-awareness I have that life is a gift, and I don't want it to go by without enjoying it to the fullest. I also know that it's a gift that can pass us by pretty quickly if we're not careful. But I've also recently learned the term Yutori. It's a Japanese term. It means spaciousness, living a spacious life. That can look like trying to arrive at a place a little bit early so that when you get there you have a moment to look around. It can be reading a really good part of a book and realizing you don't have to keep going. You can just take a moment and let those words sink in. It's catching yourself while you're eating to make sure you're not just shoving in one bite after another, but actually enjoying each one. That's a concept I'm trying to incorporate a little bit more. Part of my morning routine is to leave space for listening, just having a moment to be still and giving myself a chance to hear whispers from God or the world around me. Some mornings nothing happens. A lot of morning nothing happens, at least as far as I can see. But creating that space means that when it does, it's profound. So this bar in Porto is a pretty big win. It's actually like an outdoor garden. There's a bar here, but there's also these olive trees and gardens. So it's a perfect kid-friendly spot. Parents can go enjoy wine, beer, a cocktail, and the kids have plenty of free roam space. It's mostly fenced in. So get to enjoy it. Plus, the whole surrounding area is like central Porto, the historic cathedral, town center and everything, so you're really not missing out. You're right in the heart of it. Yutori might be a Japanese word, but the Iberian Peninsula is a great place to put that into practice. You know, I find that the Spanish and Portuguese cultures give you ample time to move slow and look around, and they actually kind of reward you for doing it. Take, for instance, old buildings like that one. You know, they've got gorgeous tiles on the outside. They're old. It's your loss if you just speed past them on a daily basis on your commute. Practicing Yutori, cultivating a spacious life, that's helped me build up a better resistance against time anxiety, against my habit of living in a hurry. Living a more spacious life, that starts within you. But I also think you can also feel when you're in a hurry. You know, when you feel like you're trying to pack too much in, your muscles tighten up, your brain feels crowded, and spaciousness just gives it all room to breathe.
We got donuts.
This is probably one of the eggiest egg tarts I've had.
And sweetest. It usually tastes more like custard than.
Yeah, usually there's a
So I started to give myself extremely generous time allotments. You know, if I have a task that I could get done in half an hour, I'll still go ahead and block out the whole hour. Because if nothing else, that allows me to go slower, put more thought into it, craft it really well if I'm making something, or to just really enjoy the process of whatever it is I'm doing. The other thing I do, and this is true when it comes to work, and when it comes to trips like the one I'm on right now, is to try and just give myself one thing that I really want to do that day. You know, I still do have like checklists and things. Those kind of help me manage my life. But by setting forth with the intention of there's just one thing that I think if I get this done, it'll be a win. And anchoring it around that one thing, it just keeps things moving forward. And there's no need to get greedy over trying to stuff everything in. And so, yeah, that's great while traveling, especially with kids. Like, here's our one objective. The rest of it, we can stop at whatever's interesting along the way. We can go back to the house and take naps. We can do what we do. Mercado Bolhau, I have lost track already of which pastel de nata this is on this trip. Maybe like number 6 or 7, but here we go. I've had fresher. This kind of tastes like it's been out for a minute. It's not bad. Yutori is a concept best defined by the different ways people practice creating more space in their lives. You know, for me, that's looked like giving myself generous allotments of time to do things. It's looked like not trying to do too much and just leaving time and space to simply listen to the world around me. One other practice I'm working on, but finding a lot harder, is this. Trying to take on each activity that I'm doing as if this might be the last time I ever do it. I don't want to sound too morbid about that, but to a degree, keeping this in mind can be really helpful, you know, a little dose of memento mori. This stops me from over-planning the next trip while I'm already on one, you know? It helps me get the most out of whatever I'm doing at present. To be deeply present with whatever's in front of me and to yearn for nothing else sounds like an incredible way to live.